This will come as no surprise, but Congress is a complete cesspool. And what I have found is a Washington Post article where Representative Mike Johnson, House Speaker Moses Mike, remember Jesus talks to him, has said that the Republicans cannot subpoena Cassidy Hutchinson because members of Congress have sent her sexually explicit texts. Are you kidding me? Number one, I'm not surprised at all that it's happening, but these are people in positions of power. Their behavior is to be a model for other people, and they are no better than the fraternity house where the college kids act crazy. And I love that Mr. Covenant Eyes with his son watching porn has to go door to door and tell the other representatives, oh, we can't bring her in as a witness because y'all have been sending nasty texts.
I have to say, I love a Republican sex scandal. I love it more than anything on the planet. My response to this is, number one, I'm not shocked at all. It's right on brand. And I think the biggest bottom feeders on the planet work in Congress, particularly the MAGA ones. But my response to this is, let's get Cassidy Hutchinson on this here podcast of ours with some screenshots, and let's have a tea session, because this is what we need. We need this right now. We need whistleblowing. We need names. We need receipts. I am 0% shocked and 100% motivated. Cassidy Hutchinson, you have a chair right here. It's already warm and ready. Let's go, baby girl. Let's get these tweets out there. Let's get these text messages. Our listeners are chomping at the bit for this tea.
Well, and I read Cassidy's book, and I feel a little bit slight changed that the texts were not included in the book, but I'll let it slide because the book was excellent. And, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene was threatening to out all the Republicans that have settled sexual harassment claims. And then Matt Gaetz says he was going to expose the slush fund of public money that Republicans use to pay women to be silent. So I'm just like, this place is a sex den, not to mention what Matt Gaetz was doing.
I am very disappointed in Marjorie.
Yes.
I that is really one of my top grievances on the planet. When somebody calls you and says, oh, I have some tea. And you're like, oh my God, what is it? Oh, never mind. I shouldn't tell you. What Marjorie Taylor Greene has done to dangle that out there, because we all know it's true. We all know all of these MAGA men have major sexual issues. We know this because they're obsessed with women's reproductive health care, and they're obsessed with gay issues, LGBTQ plus issues. They are consumed with sex. I've never seen a group of alleged heterosexuals speak so much about sex as I have the MAGA movement.
Right.
So, you know, Trump signed an executive order. We're going to release the JFK and MLK and RFK. I want all this stuff. I want to know MAGA Mike. I want to know who he's covering up for. I want to know all of the tea, because I live for Republican sex scandals. They are so predictable. And despite their predictability, they are so delicious. I can grind that shit up and snort it all day long. So Cassidy Hutchinson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, we're living in Trump's America now, and we need this tea. We have got to have this tea. But here's what I know. The truth always does come out. And so we will be here waiting with our mics right here, listener. Here's our mic. We'll be here waiting with bated breath, and we will report. We'll go live. Fuck it. We'll do it live. And so I think that's some good tea. And I do think we have to talk about the abject hypocrisy of Moses Mike, who says that God talks to him all the time, and he monitors his son's porn use, and his son monitors his porn use, because that's totally normal. I mean, who doesn't monitor their porn use with their teenager? And so I think that this is totally on brand for MAGA and the breathtaking hypocrisy in which they live. And what's always going to be so fascinating is the millions of Americans that totally fall down this hypocritical trap with them, which leads me to believe that we have a massive mental health crisis in this country on full display.
Well, you cannot argue against it based on the behavior and the voting record. But one thing I did think was interesting is the MLK records declassified, JFK, RFK. Where was Jeffrey Epstein? Where was Jeffrey Epstein?
That's a good point, Pops. That's a
We've
really
got
good point.
Trump on his plane several times. We've
And
got calls.
Marjorie's taken her foot off the gas on that because
Right.
she was one of the ringleaders. Release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. She has been a ringleader in that regard, and she has taken her foot off the gas. And so that might be worthy of a little nudge, listener, on Twitter. Make a little MAGA burner account and just start riling her up, because I'm sure she's just the easiest thing to wind up like a cheap clock.
Oh, there's no question, but I'm sure she's been told, do not mention the JFK files because there's naughty stuff going on in there. I'm sorry, what did I say, JFK?
The Epstein
files. Yeah, absolutely. And then another piece that I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention, because this is how dictatorships start. Representative Andy Ogles from Tennessee has introduced a resolution to eradicate term limits, allowing a president to serve for 3 or more terms. And I'm just like, Andy, we don't have real problems to solve. Shouldn't you be trying to get the Epstein files released? I mean, come on.
Shouldn't you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and saying, who else? Come on, spill the beans. I think this is so predictable. And if somebody would have told me 7 months ago, Trump's going to win and then they're going to try to do an amendment against term limits, I would have said that's right. Yeah, that's exactly what they're going to try to do. The problem is these things are far more difficult than they realize. A lot of this is just bullshit. It's like Trump saying he's ending birthright citizenship. Problem with that is there's a constitution, there are courts, there's a Supreme Court, there's procedures, it takes 2/3, et cetera. Same thing with this. So all of this is just a Fox News headline, a right-wing media echo chamber headline. But also it's interesting to me that they are really good at providing cover during a campaign cycle. It's about eggs. It's about the border. And then once they get into office, they're also good at throwing them. It's the Gulf of America. It's Mount McKinley. We're not calling it Mount Denali anymore. We're doing away with DEI. And then we're changing the names of this. And then, oh, look, we're going to remove term limits. None of this helps rural Americans or working class Americans, urban working class Americans. Everything that Trump is doing benefits very, 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 very few Americans. And that's the lead. And that's what's constantly buried with all of this overt nationalism. And so they're going to continue because their base is very triggered by overt nationalistic headlines. Like Trump's going to be here forever because he loves America more than anybody else does. Or we're going to change, the name of this and the name of that. It's all just bullshit, red meat that they throw to a very low information base. You know what I heard, Pumps?
What?
And there's a study on this and we can look it up. But when they interview people that get their news from mainstream, like Associated Press style, they tend to be the most informed. And then you have people that don't watch the news at all. And then you have people that watch Fox. When they were quizzed and asked about current events, the people who watched no news whatsoever and read no news whatsoever got more answers right than those who freebase Fox News.
I completely believe that because 90% of what they put on the air is abject lies and falsehoods. And they are Donald Trump is the king of distraction. The Republican Party is way better at messaging and soundbiting and grabbing people's attention than the Democrats are. And Fox News just feeds them red meat all the time. If you watched Fox News, you would think that every other person in the United States of America, so at least 1/2 of Americans were trans. You just would. You would think, oh my gosh, trans people are everywhere. Every basketball team, every softball team. Yeah. It's nothing but boys wanting to play on girls' teams, blah, blah, blah. It's less than 1% of the population. But these people believe that there's just armies and armies and armies of trans people trying to take over the world. It's insane how little facts are presented on that station.
Well, it's it's all propaganda and conspiracy theories,
That's
and
right.
they rely heavily on tropes. And one of the biggest conspiracy theories that was started many decades ago is that somehow homosexuality or bisexuality or transgenderism is harmful to children with regards to some sort of sexual promiscuity or offenses on the people who have are LGBTQIA plus members. And so that is a conspiracy theory that has lived on decade after decade. And now a lot of people on the right accept that to be true. They accept that if somebody is gay or somebody is trans, that there's some sort of screwed up sexual pervert. And sadly, the facts are this: your child has a million times more likelihood of getting abused sexually at a church, in a Sunday school class, or at a church camp than they ever would around a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. But nobody can ever criticize churches. And if you think about the fact that these churches have not been put out of business, that have had decades and thousands, some tens of thousands, Catholic Church, hundreds of thousands of victims, and they're still operating tax-free after such crimes and cover-up of crimes is insane. But yet these conspiracy theories that somehow there's this insidious nature to somebody's sexual orientation persist nonetheless, thanks in part to Fox News. But now the Fox News umbrella has all of these, The Wire and that Ben Shapiro and all of these other crazies that are under it now. And I think I just read recently that there was a shooting in Nashville, and the person was radicalized by Candace Owens.
I read that same article that said that. Yes, that she was influencing him. And that's another thing about all these school shootings. I don't want to get into the fact that the Republicans are willing to do nothing regarding gun safety. But what really bothers me is that the people on the right act like that all these, mass shootings, school shootings, the New Orleans thing, they immediately go to immigrants. All of these shootings are done by homegrown Americans, mostly white. So do not talk to me about migrants and the harm that they do, because the problem comes from within. People are not crossing the border to go to school shootings. They're doing that because they grew up in these communities and they were born here, and the majority are white. Now, this guy that was influenced by Candace Owens, he was an exception, but I don't ever see a lot of people of color doing school shootings.
I think the situation is less about the color of skin and the more about radicalization and isolation. And so the shooting thing is a uniquely American problem, and people try to make it about race or a lot of other things. My opinion is that it is about a pervasive gun culture. The way American society is set up is very isolating. We have to drive everywhere. We don't walk everywhere. You have an extremely overtly religious country in the era of the modern world, which is very depressing, I think, for people to reconcile. But that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's just, the problem is if nobody's willing to look at themselves and say, these are facts, this is science, these are what experts says. In the Trump era 2.0, science is a thing in the past. Experts, facts, it's a thing in the past. So I don't see improvement in any of those areas. And I know that the gun lobby is too powerful to have any kind of gun reform under Trump 2.0.
Americans value profit over human beings, particularly MAGA Americans are always going to vote for profit over human beings. So these next 4 years, we're going to see intense suffering, sadly. All right, we'll see you guys later.